me out, President Barstool, hate me. I'ma trust my gut, you don't face me.
Welcome everyone back to a brand new edition of the Angle Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Joey Karni, and today's guest is one of the most respected men in all of sports entertainment. But before I introduce him, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe down below to stay up to date with all the Angle's activity right here on YouTube. And like I said, my guest today is one of the most respected men in all of sports entertainment. He's devoted his entire career to training some of the greatest superstars we have ever seen in a wrestling ring. Names such as Dolph Ziggler, Randy Orton, Brock Lesnar, Kurt Angle, the Bella Twins, and even the most electrifying man in all of sports entertainment, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Without his contributions, professional wrestling would not be what it is today. He is here now to talk about his career, but also shoot on some major professional wrestling topics. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Tom Prichard. How are you, Tom? And welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much. I'm not quite sure how to take that when you say without my contributions, pro wrestling wouldn't be what it is today. Is it exactly the best it's ever been today? I'm just asking.
Well, I don't think so. But, I mean, to get us to a point where we can always go, further, it's always a good thing.
I agree with you. I really do. But it's a pleasure to be here today.
I appreciate your time. To kind of start things off here, where did your love for pro wrestling come from? Like, what made you decide that you wanted to devote your life to this?
Well, you got to understand the culture and the world was a different place. I was born in 1959, so I started watching wrestling in the 60s. And that's where my love came from. And I watched the Funks growing up, Dory Funk Jr., Dory Funk Sr., Dory Funk Jr., and Terry Funk. They were in West Texas. And I was walking, I just remember being in the living room one day and my brothers were watching wrestling on a black and white TV. And it was fascinating. It was an hour TV show of these guys doing these heinous things to each other, hitting everybody over the head with a chair, throwing fire, taking stuff out of their trunks and knocking people out, blood and guts all over the place. Different place, different time, different culture. It was West Texas. And from there, from the first time I ever watched it and heard the promos and saw these larger than life characters, I fell in love with it. And that's all I can remember ever wanting to do. I was a horrible student, but man, I could tell you who Jim Lundis was way back then. I could tell you who Frank Gotch and Hackenschmidt, George Hackenschmidt were. There was no internet or anything like that. There were wrestling magazines. And I learned about and studied about the guys I listened to the commentators talk about and the guys that were on TV by just watching and learning and mesmerized by what they did.
Yeah, and like we started at the beginning, a lot has changed really over the last couple of years to the most. But wrestling has changed overall, new companies, new directions, new advances, different things like that. I know we could probably go on for 12 hours to talk about this, but what do you think has changed the most within the last couple of years?
I think everyone knew when they watched professional wrestling that it wasn't exactly a legitimate contest. Even back years and years and years ago, people knew that. At the same time, you had true believers. And as a kid, my dad would tell me, how can you hit somebody 5 times in the face and not a mark on? No blood, no trauma, anything like that. And I didn't get that. I thought because these guys were tough, these guys were superhero. And at the same time, when I grew up watching guys like the Funks and Harley Race and Ricky Romero, Grizzly Smith, and the Infernos, Saul Weingroff, and these characters that nobody has a clue who they are today. They didn't throw a whole lot of punches in Texas. They when they threw a punch, it was one, and they sold it. Whoever it was going to be in the ring. And also, they did things like hard ways, where they would the fellas in the ring would say, "Are you ready?" And then actually punch each other in the mouth or punch each other in the eye for real. There were times when they would actually knock each other's teeth out for real to convince people that they were for real.
Yeah.
But that element and that model doesn't exist anymore. These guys had the passion and wanted to go that extra mile. They would walk in the ring like they were professional wrestlers. They had a 5, 6, 7 night a week job where they would go from town to town every night. And it was their job to make people convinced that this was a real deal. You know, the saying is think, shoot, but work. And in Texas, West and East Texas, they kept it pretty snug. And that doesn't exist today. Everybody's, again, our world has changed drastically. Video games, there are PCs, things that we didn't have. You know, the wrestling territory stayed within its region, and you didn't really hear about the other places like New York or Memphis or things like that unless you bought wrestling magazines. Yeah. So that's changed huge. Social media's changed. The computer, just knowing instantly what happened across the world or instantly what happened, you know, in another part of the state. Growing up, it wasn't like that. It was very regional. And again, that was how I got smartened up about 10 years old. They did an angle in El Paso between Harley Race and Grizzly Smith. And they also did an angle, the same angle in Houston with Harley Race and Grizzly Smith. And it just so happened that we were, when this angle took place in El Paso between Harley Race and Grizzly Smith, we had to move to Houston where we found a whole new group of wrestlers. And I'm getting newspaper clippings. That's another thing that's missing today. Newspaper clippings telling the story about how it's touch and go with Grizzly Smith. His career may be over. He may not come back. We're not sure, but we'll keep you updated. And in Houston, about 6 weeks after we moved, promoter Paul Bosch comes on TV and says, next Friday night, returning to action to get revenge on Johnny Valentine for coming off that second rope with the bionic elbow or his ultimate elbow, whatever he called it, is Grizzly Smith, and he'll get his revenge next Friday in the Sam Houston Coliseum. At the same time, a friend of mine sent me a newspaper clipping saying, oh my gosh, returning next Monday night in El Paso County Coliseum, Grizzly Smith is coming back to wrestle Harley Race and get revenge. So it's happening at the same time. Yeah. And that's when I kind of put 2 and 2 together. And when I told Grizzly and Harley that, Grizzly said, you know, yeah, I had a 6-week tour of Japan, and I was working both places in the state, and I had to be out for 6 weeks, and we came back and we did great business. So, you know, cable TV, people's high demands and being more sophisticated, I think, has really, really changed. The guys going to the ring thinking it's a performance instead of thinking in their mind, thinking in their head. This is real to them, and people know when you're not real, and people know when you're not authentic, and that's missing today. A lot of it's missing. The most authentic guy in the business today is Brock Lesnar, and there's only one Brock Lesnar, and there should be. But yeah, that's a huge element I think missing is the guys believing in themselves and at least going out there and having that gravitas to follow through with it and be that guy.
Yeah, and I recently had JBL on the show, and we discussed how being a heel today has really changed, and he said it was due to social media.
Yeah.
That, you know, the internet has really, you know, taken away that aspect of being someone that's people generally hate because they're obviously building their brand on social media. How would you go about teaching social media to your students?
Well, we have a great social media guy who comes in. He enjoys doing it. And he talks about the camera angles and things like this. I talk about not being stupid and not saying stupid things on social media. Yeah. I've been just as guilty. I certainly get it, but that's how I know. And that's how now I don't do a lot of social media. We let Jamal do our social media because he's more in tune with the fan aspect of it. I don't want to mess with social media because it was one of those elements. All I asked one time, not too long ago, I think it was the summertime, Or no. I think it was back last year early on. I said something about the Undertaker's interview on Joe Rogan, and Taker, all he said was when he was coming up, there were real men in the business. The guys looked like men. The guys looked like gladiators. The guys looked at least tough. And most of them were back then. And when he talked about having guns in their bags and things of that nature, he was talking about that was how hot it got for the heels and baby faces sometimes from the fans wanting to actually really attack you because you had legitimate, authentic heat.
Yeah.
And nowadays, everybody gets on Twitter or Facebook, say, boy, we had a great match last night. Boy, we had a lot of fun, and I want to thank my opponent. And you show them sitting together eating. I understand that to a point, but that's what got away from it. The commissions went away, and anybody can do this. And then you get in there, and guys don't go to the gym, they don't look the part, and they can't wrestle, and they can't work. It's not about wrestling. It's about believing and going out there thinking shoot, but work. And convincing people, and then not getting on. We didn't get on social media back then. So, well, we went over those spots over and over, and we finally got them. And they're trying to pop the boys. So that's just that's the culture we find ourselves in. And I don't want to be one of those guys. And I always hated when somebody said back in my day, or you kids and these damn kids, and you get off my lawn. No, I don't want to be like that. But at the same time, I look at it like this. I've seen guys like Johnny Valentine and Wahoo McDaniel, names people don't know today unless they truly love this business. And they went out there night after night. I mean, these were the guys in the business back then that I fell in love with because they looked like pros. They dressed like pros when they went to the ring. They didn't wear a crappy t-shirt that anybody can buy at Walmart. They went out there wearing something nobody else was wearing, a robe, a jacket, tights, trunks, boots. Not just, you couldn't just go to Walmart and buy. Yeah. They looked special. They were professional. And so that has a lot to do with it too. I think it's just the mindset has changed. Go out and do 5 super kicks in a row and nobody goes down. Go out and do the flip, flop, and fly. And man, you have to have flip, flop, and fly. You have to have cool spots. It's entertainment, but you have to know where to put them. And these days, I see a lot of matches who go through a 20-segment high spot with, literally 20 segments. And 10 minutes later, 10 minutes later, they beat him with a small package or a schoolboy. And that's not exaggerating because I've seen it recently. So, nobody understands how to think, shoot, or work. They've never seen a match where you actually believe when you're watching these guys, where you actually get wrapped up into it like a movie. Okay. And it was a movie back then. It was entertainment back then. The guys were just as much working back then. It was just snugger, more realistic to some people. And it felt more authentic. These guys never broke character. They didn't let you in, wink, wink. Hey, we're over here. Look at my dinner I'm having tonight. Look at this apple I'm about to eat, and things like that. There was some mystery to the guys. You don't have to tell everybody everything about you. Keep some mystery, keep some distance. And that's not happening today. Everybody wants to be famous. Everyone wants to have their face out there and let you know that they know that you know that I know, and all that crap. So,
yeah. And it's funny because I know there's people still today in the business at a top level that believe the same way. I saw our interview recently with Randy Orton, and he kind of said the same thing, where he even spoke about Undertaker and how, it's not a back in his day type thing, but where did the real men go? Where it's just kind of a show instead of more of a fight type feel, and the authenticity of what's happening in the ring, just getting the fans to pop the whole match.
Well, and here's do you have a time limit?
No, I don't.
Okay. Then did you see the Poirier McGregor fight?
Yeah.
Okay. Greg Valentine wrestled Wahoo McDaniel and broke his leg. And he ran around the Carolinas with the "I broke Wahoo's leg" t-shirt. And Wahoo was out for a while, and they came out and they came back and did great business. Poirier versus McGregor. I hadn't seen an MMA fight, I couldn't tell you how long. And I happened to see it when I was doing a seminar. Went to Hooters to watch the fight. What a better finish. I mean, at the buzzer, at the bell, or whatever they do, I don't even know. But Poirier was in charge, wasn't killing him, but he was in charge. Put his foot on the cage. Oh my God. And then at the end of the match, first round, McGregor breaks his ankle. There's drama there. And Joe Rogan interviews McGregor when he's laying on the cage.
Yep.
That was professional wrestling back then.
Yep.
Only they were working. So after the fight, it was like all the elements fell in place.
Yep.
So those things actually happen. The greatest thing about professional wrestling is we can manipulate it and make it happen whenever we wanted to. Yep. And you had guys who knew how to react, not act, but react accordingly. So I'm not saying McGregor and those guys are working, but I'm saying in any business venture that you're selling tickets to and big money's involved,
yeah,
you better give people what they want or they ain't going to buy you tickets again.
Exactly. They can come back.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, the fighters who know. You know, Floyd Mayweather broke the Big Show's nose legitimately before WrestleMania, whatever number it was. But that was business. And that's the way they did it back then, too. Floyd Mayweather is one of the baddest dudes in the world, right?
Yeah.
But he understands business. It's a business.
It made me interested in that fight. I remember watching that WrestleMania 24.
Yeah. It drew a lot of people in because they weren't sure. This is Money Mayweather. This is a real guy. What's he doing in wrestling? He's making millions. You know what I mean? So anyway, there's always been the element about money, but then there's always been the element about legitimacy.
Yeah.
It's not about the legitimacy. It's about the money. If you can make it look great and give people what they want, that's the key. Yeah.
And your name is really at the forefront of a lot of successful superstars' names. Some that I mentioned before, Kurt Angle, even Dolph Ziggler, the Bella Twins, The Rock, Randy. What does it mean to have your legacy and your teachings live on? I know there was more than one person involved there, but to have your legacy and what you taught them live on through them and ultimately, pass down to the next generation that they're going to be teaching. And somewhat capability.
Yeah, no, that I think is very cool. And I think that's, I know how my career went and I know why, and all the things that happened. And I've made every mistake there is to make. But that's why I think bringing my experience in as a teacher or a coach gives me the advantage of understanding you're about to head for the falls and it's going to go straight down if you don't make a U-turn right now, or at least make a left or a right.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of times that I went right over the falls and crashed. So I think it's very cool. I really do. I think it's really cool. And that's my legacy. I think that it's really going to, if any legacy whatsoever, man, I'm not that presumptuous to say, but I am at least confident enough to say everybody has their way of doing things. You have your way, I have my way. The right way, the only way does not exist. So when I would coach guys like a Kurt Angle or a Mark Henry, The Rock was already a superstar, man. He grew up in the business. He grew up around it.
Yeah.
I was just fortunate to have him in that group, the first group of developmental.
Yeah.
So it's being at the right place at the right time. But that's a very cool thing to even have my name connected or even mentioned in the same breath. Yeah, it really is.
And another name that you can get add to that list is Brock Lesnar, someone you spoke to earlier on, who worked and started in OVW, his professional wrestling career at least, and is now in 2022 main eventing a WrestleMania still. What are your thoughts on? I know you said Brock Lesnar's the only real worker today.
I say he's most authentic.
Authentic, yes,
yeah.
Most authentic worker today. What are your thoughts on Brock and what he's been able to do? I mean, his entire career.
I think it's phenomenal because a guy like that could have just the opposite effect and just the opposite reaction, because a lot of amateur wrestlers don't get it. They can't react. They can't adapt. Yeah. It's so unnatural for a real amateur wrestler, real wrestler, to be on his back. Brock understands working. Brock understands business. Brock has always wanted to be in show business. That's Brock. When he comes out to the ring, he turns the volume up and he looks like a badass. He is a badass. He's real and he is authentic. Some guys want to act like a badass, but they're not a badass. It's got to be an element of your personality where people can relate to it, look at it, feel it. If it looks good, you'll see it. If it sounds good, you'll hear it. If it's marketed right, you'll buy it. But if it's real, you will feel it and make everybody else feel it too. This is a feeling business. Yeah. This is like none other. This was the greatest impromptu business at one time before it became a television business. You had to feel it and go out there and tell a story every single week. Yeah. And you had to change the story. You had to change the narrative sometimes. And you had to do something different, because you do the same thing over and over, people are going to get tired and bored. That's why I say you do have to know high spots. But here's the other thing, man. And the guy that broke me in, Paul Bosch, said this many times. He says, I like strawberries, and I also like to go fishing. But when I go fishing, I put worms on the hook because I'm trying to catch fish. In other words, you're trying to draw fans, casual fans, wrestling fans, anybody, even if you're not a fan yet.
Yeah.
So you got to give the fans, you got to give the people watching your product what they want, not necessarily what you like. That's why I'm going to contradict myself here. AEW obviously has an audience, a niche audience. If they like it and they come and they buy tickets, I can't argue with that. It may not be my cup of tea, but there are people out there who want to see it, who enjoy it, who like it, and who also play video games, who also do things that these guys do, and they connect. So I think you have to find it. And if people are reacting and following AEW, more power to them. It's a place to go. If WWE is stale and sterile and all these other words, they're in it for the long haul. They will weather the storm, and they will understand. We'll have high periods and we'll have low periods. We're going through a low period. The country's going through a low period. Everybody's been suffering, man. We got thrown through a loop. Yeah. And so, what do? You adjust, you adapt, and you find new ways to do things, to stay alive.
Of course. Yeah. And when you became, a trainer, a coach, did that come natural to you?
Well, I really don't. I took karate when I was 10. I got my black belt at 18, and I taught karate classes for a while, man. That was just while I was also working in the wrestling office.
Yeah.
I was so fortunate when I was a kid to be able to work summers in the wrestling office, but you don't really know if you can teach or coach until you do it, until you just go out and try it.
Yeah.
So I have my way of doing things, and I say these stupid things every day, and I say crazy stuff every day, and people say, what in the hell are you talking about? And that's the way I learned the business. Stories in the car, in the locker rooms, when you get in the ring, you're having fun, you're learning a lesson. The model back then was you had a veteran with a young guy, married with him for 3 weeks. And then you would get to know the guy, and you would tell stories, and you would say these and make these analogies. And I loved it because it's not just, this is the way you do it, A, B, C, D, E. No, we have the basics and foundation, and they never go out of style. Basics and foundation of any sport will never go out of style because, and again, Jimi Hendrix didn't just start playing the guitar with his teeth. He learned how to play the basics and the chords and how to hold the guitar, and then he developed his style. He developed into what he was. Same thing with any musician performer. You start out learning. This is how we lock up. This is how much space in between. Basic stuff. And then you find your style. I mean, I will say stuff and people laugh, or people will say, "What are you talking about?" Well, it's more entertaining my way. And here's the thing I've learned about coaching. If the coach isn't enjoying himself, if the coach isn't having fun coaching and telling and explaining, then you ain't going to have fun either. So that's what I found in my experience. So I'm going to have fun. I don't take myself that seriously. I, honest to God, don't. I have some steadfast rules, and I do have my quirks. Don't touch my stuff. It's like touching anybody's property. If it's a laptop or opening the refrigerator, it's so petty, but it's so crucial in understanding. There is a respect factor in this business. There's a respect factor in any sport, any discipline, any entertainment genre. So that's part of the teaching process I go through. And will I get hot? Of course I will. But I also tell the guys this: the way I teach, I'm working. Even when I'm yelling, I'm shooting, but I'm working. And they don't get that until the end, until they see me and watch me perform as I'm coaching. Because that's what coaching is. You have to learn who to pat on the back and who to kick in the ass. And there's that much distance between a pat on the back and a kick in the ass. So do I go, good job, keep going? Or do I kick somebody in the ass who needs to be pushed even more? Because a lot of guys come in and get lazy and get complacent and get too comfortable. And that's when you stop patting them on the back and say, by God, I know you got more in you. I'm going to kick you in the ass. I'm going to yell and scream, and I'm going to get you going. Yeah. Some people need to be a little more delicate, and you just say, okay. And I've had both sides, and I've had both sides work.
And yeah, I mean, if it works for you, and it has, I mean, why not?
No, why not? That's what I'm saying. So, I mean, people have come in. We've had really good luck. The pandemic hit right as we got started.
Yeah.
So we were fortunate enough when WWE was in town to use extras at that time, and then COVID hit, and then they went to Florida and all this stuff. But at the same time, we've had people signed with AEW. We've had people signed with NWA. WWE. So we've been very fortunate. My style isn't for everybody. It really isn't. But I'm not going to change. They need to adapt. If you can't take my crap when I give it to you, then I'm a pussycat, man. I really am. The other guys, good players want to be coached. Great players want to be told the truth. A lot of people can't handle the truth. A lot of people don't want to hear the truth. I'm sorry. I can't help it. So that's how I found out, and that's how I enjoy teaching more than I have ever at this time. So it gets hectic sometimes. At the last, we're in March, but I love when I'm busy. But the last few months have been really gratifying, and I'm grateful every day.
Yeah.
But you don't realize how busy you are until you find out how busy you get, and then you understand. I don't have time. I have to get my hours in the morning, and I've got the rest of my hours from 3:00 in the afternoon till 10 at night at JPWA. That's 5 nights a week, by the way.
Wow.
Yeah.
But it's what you love, and it's what what you thrive off of. So props to you to be able to do that, and still every day.
Yeah.
So I do want to touch on OVW, and OVW obviously went to FCW and then became NXT at the Performance Center in Orlando. And throughout that entire process, there have been very little, if not any, names to come out like The Rock and Randy Orton and John Cena. In your opinion, why is that? Why have we not had such box office names from this process?
Well, again, I can't. I have I have a couple good friends in NXT coaches, and I have some acquaintance in NXT who are also coaches and people who were signed, not necessarily from us, but just from all over. I don't know that that's necessarily true because they have their own TV show and they made stars out of those guys, Ciampa and some of those guys have come along. So they have made stars. But here's my view on that. They've got a great, I've never been in the PC. I've never stepped foot in it. I'd love to see it one day because it sounds like a great building. Sounds fantastic. Yeah. If you're a wrestler, you have everything at your fingertips to learn about the history, to study, to cut promos, to work on whatever you want to work on. They have how many rings? 8, 7, 6, 5?
I think it's
how
like
many?
6 or something like that. Okay. 6, 7, something.
Okay, so I've seen the layout, and it's they're in the same room, but they're far apart. And I think the model was the what was WCW's Power Plant?
Power Plant.
Okay. All right. My opinion is this: if you have a bunch of young people, young guys, 20s, okay, in a big room, and there's 6 rings, and there's something going on over here, or something going on over there, or something going on over here. Yes, it's a distraction. And they wanted us in FCW. We had 3 rings in the back. We had 1 ring in the main arena. So we had 4 rings. But it's again, and wrestling is an opinion, just an opinion. This is mine. You need to be focused on what you're doing and everybody else is doing too. And so you can listen to what I'm saying or the coach is saying, because I may have an idea here and I'm going to say it to you guys. And I can't say the same thing twice. I can't cut a promo the same way twice. I can't tell you the same thing the same way twice. So you need to hear what we're talking about here or what we're going over here, because once we change and I get a new group or a new class, they're going to hear something completely different. They're going to get the same basics. We're going to do the same thing, but it's going to be taught in a different way because I'm adjusting now to the guys that are here. Some guys, again, I go back to kicking in the ass or patting on the back. A lot of people need more encouragement than others. So my opinion is when you get a cookie cutter system, you're going to get cookie cutter athletes or performers. I believe this should be individual. I believe not everybody takes a hip toss the same way. As long as you land flat with your feet on the mat, there's your basic. There's your fundamental way to do it. How you get there is the whole other part of this business. It's a feeling business. You have to do it as an individual, and you've got to do it where it looks natural. You've got to feel this. Don't do it until you get it right. Do it until you can't get it wrong. It's just got to feel natural, second nature to you, to where if you are in the ring and you even grab the right arm by mistake, there's no way you can't grab the arm by mistake because that's so unnatural. But it takes time to get to that point. You follow me?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. If you have 6 rings, great concept. You got a great concept going on there. I know that's where Hunter got his ideas from because he wasn't very happy with FCW, obviously. That's okay. I mean, it was his deal. It's his call. It was everything. I understand that. But that's just my opinion. And I believe you need to pay attention to 1 ring and 1 guy. And understand, you always say this again, that there's my way, your way, the right way, the other way does not exist, but we do have something I want you guys to follow. You follow it this way right now, so everybody's on the same page. Once you get out there, you have to also have this instinct on knowing how to adapt, knowing how to listen. And a lot of the guys, well, everybody's handicapped these days because you don't have that 15-year or 20-year veteran in there calling it for you and telling you to slow down, telling you to sit here and listen and all these things. There's a lot of elements that don't exist anymore that did back in my day.
And with NXT, obviously being developmental, and same thing goes for FCW, where names like, Roman Reigns and Big E came from. NXT eventually became a brand where they were signing more well-known independent, guys, Seth Rollins, Finn Balor, Kevin Owens. Where was that? Where do you think that shift came from? And do you actually agree with that process of really not having the homegrown talent?
The shift came when the shift was being made, when the changes were being made. And the issue that I have and have seen in the past is the same thing I see today. You have these habits, and nobody's ever told them that doesn't work in this place in the match. Yeah. So you continue doing these things. And I don't believe WWE has just one way to train. Well, maybe they do now. I don't know. But back in FCW, when we were doing it, we allowed people to try things, see if it works, keep it. If it doesn't, throw it away. So when you bring an independent guy in who has his habits, has his head set, because he's got these pops out there, and he's an indie darling, and he's the internet darling. You come in, and then all of a sudden you find out why they've been on the indies so long. They don't understand timing. They don't understand perception. They don't understand that what we do in the ring is really that much of the business. It's the outside the ring as well. You have to know how to maneuver, manipulate, and operate backstage. And then when you go out, you have to listen, because you're going to hear 5 different opinions, 5 different views from 5 people. It's not all going to be the same. So you have to take all that information and process it, which is not easy to begin with, and go out and see if it works for you. But as a lot of indie guys that I found have come through, they rush, and you tell them to slow down, you show them how to slow down, and they still don't get it. Right. They want to do their high spots. They want to clap their hands. This is a big one. Yeah, come on. Don't beg anybody. Earn that applause. Earn that crowd reaction. Daniel Bryan will never, ever be a superstar in this business. He's too small. He has no personality. He's never going to resonate with the people. He's never going to get over in a major company like WWE because he's an indie guy. You had 70,000 people going, yes, 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 at WrestleMania. What is it about Daniel Bryan, who came from the indies? What is it about Daniel Bryan that connected with the fans? You have to ask yourself, because he's not 6'4", 280 pounds. He's an average looking guy who went out and became one of the biggest stars on the roster. How do you get there? Daniel understood that. Daniel Bryan understood. He understood how to connect. I don't even know if he could tell you how. He was just being him. But there's something that's that it factor. Yeah. And a lot of the guys coming from the indies think they have it already because they got all these pops from 40 people in the crowd. Okay, Daniel Bryan took advice. He had a great mentor in William Regal. He found it, and he was never going to be a star. He did everything to break that mold and went out and got over. That's the secret. That's what you got to find out. And the way you do that is you find out about guys like Daniel Bryan. Listen to his promos. Hear what he says. Take lessons from him. Everybody's a coach, whether they know it or not. They're passing down knowledge, and Daniel Bryan would be a great coach. But that's the thing, man. Indie guys think they get over, and the internet starts featuring them. And then when you get to WWE or AEW, at least WWE, I do know, they do have standards, and they do want to know if you know how to play the game. They want to know, do you listen, and who are you going to listen to? Will you take what is being said to you and know how to adapt it and interpret it? And then you got to adapt and interpret your way. Yeah. So some people know how to do that. Some people don't. Daniel Bryan happened to be one of the ones who did and understood the backstage machinery, mechanics, and things like that. And that's a huge element into it, man, because if you're an asshole, nobody's going to book you. Nobody's going to want to work with you. So indie guys sometimes come in full of their own crap and don't ever adapt. Other guys can make it.
And you're in Knoxville, Tennessee. You know, with your school with Glenn Jacobs, Kane. What do you both look for when you're either scouting talent or really just trying to build the next generation?
Well, I don't know necessarily that we're trying to build the next generation, but I do know that when I look at a talent, number one, I really focus on is attitude. Attitude is the key to this anyway. And I learned this a long time ago when I was 12 years old. Somebody said, there's three kinds of people in the world: those who try, and when they don't make it, they say, at least I tried. Those who give it their best shot, and when they don't make it, they say, at least I gave it my best shot. And then the one that really resonated with me, because I was always told, I'm too small, you'll never make it, you can't, you won't, you never, oh man, give it up, get a job at a gas station. They said, the third one says, whatever it takes. And sometimes whatever it takes isn't pleasant, isn't nice, it's hard. It's difficult. It's the journey to get there. And then when you get there, you have to enjoy the journey. And so I've seen kids come in, and I've told them, get in the gym. You've got to believe in yourself. Their attitude is, I don't want to do that. I just want to come in for the journey. And I thought, okay, I'm fine with that, because we are just a school. It's a wrestling school. And these days, especially for people to come in and pay the money to go 12 weeks, 5 nights a week with us, cool. I mean, that's great. But at the same time, I've had people come in and say, I really want to do this. I really want to make this. I really want to. Oh, what are you willing to do? Whatever it takes, anything at all. You need to change your body completely. Are you familiar with Timmy Lee Retton?
No.
The Gymnasties.
Okay.
You ever heard of them?
Yeah.
They're a tag team, the Gymnasties, White Mike and Timmy Lee Retton.
Yeah.
I told Timmy Lee Retton 3 years ago, I think it was, I did a seminar. He asked me, what do I have to do? What am I missing? I said, dude, you're a talented guy. He can do some really cool stuff. But his body, he needed to get in shape. He needed to look different. He needed to change. He needed to have this mindset, this attitude. Gratitude, yes. You've got to think positive. Yes, it will rewire your mind. I saw Timmy last year, didn't even recognize him. Wow. Didn't even recognize him. He's making changes. He's making strides. He's making inroads. He's getting booked more. He's doing whatever it takes. I don't want to go on and on and on, but I have to tell you the story too. We had a girl in the first class, a lady in the first class, 32 years old, never watched wrestling in her life, but she watched Total Divas. She came to our first class. Her husband found out about JPWA in the newspaper, told her she should go try this. She came in first day, knows absolutely nothing about wrestling. Ricky the Savage Steamboat. Ricky the Savage Steamboat. Okay. No, it's not Ricky the Savage Steamboat. So we're watching Savage versus Steamboat on WrestleMania. She couldn't remember the names, couldn't remember the guys, never seen it, didn't know. I made her cry. I can't tell you how many times, not even intentionally, but she cried because she gets so frustrated because it's so overwhelming. The basics and fundamentals can be so overwhelming. She will never make it, ever. And then WWE came to town, wanted extras. I sent her along with the extras. All of a sudden, they needed a dark-haired girl to work with Lacey Evans because they don't want two blondes out there. She happened to be at the right place at the right time. She got her moment on TV. Couldn't believe it happened. And it did. It was part of the journey that she put in all this work. It happened one night. We had a girl, Kenzie Page, who recently signed with NWA, who was with us. And they did this repetition drill that went over an hour and 15 minutes. And they finally got a flow going. And that's how you do this. Repetition, repetition, repetition.
Yep.
So if you really want to do it, it's not impossible. But, what's possible is done. What's impossible will be done.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of hard work. It really, really does. And she put in the work.
Yeah.
Yeah, she did. So, that's what, when I look for people like that with the heart, the passion, the desire, the actual, not just saying it, but doing it. Yeah. Again, I say a lot of, I do talk a lot in quotes and all this other crap. But the thing is, people can tell you anything, but actions tell you everything.
Yeah.
I don't believe you when you tell me until I see it. I really don't. And Haley she pulled it off. She did it. And I've had other people do it too. Got another guy who recently had a tryout and got signed. Changed his body completely, changed his attitude completely. And that's really what it takes. It's the attitude and the mindset that I'm looking for. Yeah.
And opening yourself up to, to learn different perspectives and learn different, things from other people. I mean, that's the only way that you in anything, not just pro wrestling, in anything, is just, you need to be open to learning and adapting to what you're learning.
Well, why is it that baseball players, football players, boxers, even hockey, any sport, basketball, why is it that those guys playing those sports know about the Michael Jordans, know about the Lyle Alzaados, know about the Gordie Howes, know about that stuff? Because they have passion for the sport. A lot of these guys, and this is going back to the 1930s, but so is a lot of the boxing and so a lot of the other sports, Max Baer, Primo Carnera, things like this. A lot of people don't have a clue about Jim Lundis. Do you know who Jim Lundis was?
No.
Right. There's no reason in 2022 to even care about Jim Lundis. But if you want to do this for a living, it's fascinating how this business came about. It's fascinating how these things were formed. It's fascinating about the double crosses and the manipulation.
Yeah.
Lyle Alzado was a character in football. He was the real deal in football. And people who weren't even football fans knew who Lyle Alzado was, because that's how larger than life he was. You can learn something from the past and steal it and make it your own. Mick Foley got his finish. Do you know where he got his finish?
I don't.
The Mandible Claw.
Yeah.
A guy named Sam Shepard, who was in the business maybe 3 months. Maybe a window of 3 months. And Jim Cornette is a historian. He knows his business. He loves his business. And I get it. He knew about Dr. Sam Shepard and gave it to Mick, who didn't know about Dr. Sam Shepard. It's a move you can use with anybody, anytime. I saw it in Houston in the 60s and 70s with a guy named Don Jardine, who wrestled as a spoiler. So, I mean, I love the business. I love the history of the business. And if you're in this business, it might do you good to find out who came before you. Watch old matches. And why should you watch old matches? My good friend Sin Bodhi said this, and I'm stealing it every time I get a chance. Watching old matches is like mining for gold. You go down, you put it in the sift or whatever it is. You may just find mud. You may just find rocks. But then next week or 3 weeks or whatever it is, you're sifting for gold, watching an old match, and all of a sudden you find that nugget, that one move or that one spot you want to try. And that's what you keep. And you steal it because it's so old, it's new again.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you want to study who came before you and steal it? Larceny is in us all. Take it. And you don't know what you're going to find.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's the way I think.
I love it. I love to hear all of it.
Yeah.
It's amazing to hear. But touching on, I want to touch a little bit more on NXT. And, over the last couple of months, NXT has been rebranded to NXT 2.0. A lot of people saying that, Vince McMahon and Bruce are now the ones behind NXT opposed to before with Triple H. And an extreme amount of releases have taken place, even there with William Regal and, the Armstrongs. What do you believe is, one, why the rebrand of NXT, and two, why the amount of releases?
Number one, I think the rebrand of NXT is because Vince wasn't happy with it. Simple as that. Wanted to change it, wanted to make it something else.
Yeah.
And if he gets tired of what he's doing now, he'll change it and make it something else again. It's as simple as that.
NXT 2.0 or 3.0.
Yeah. I mean, it really is. And they went, I don't know, because I read the internet rumors like everybody else too. And whether he was upset about losing and the Wednesday, whatever, I don't know, because I wasn't there. Nobody else knows unless you're there too. But it's something, if Vince wants it done differently, he's going to do it differently. It's his company, it's his way. The releases, again, you have to, and this is hard too, because I've been fired there a couple times myself, and it hurts no matter what. It does sting. But it's a publicly traded company. They're beholden to their stockholders.
Yeah.
And that's the number one priority. It's not personal, it's business. What a load of shit. It is personal because you've been with these people for so long, and they've been such an intricate part of the machine, and they've developed talent for you, and they've got the talent's trust. They've built this relationship.
Yeah.
At the same time, I do believe Vince has empathy, but it's a business. And if you wanted to keep everybody you liked, then it's going to be really overcrowded. And I understand that. I do. Do I question why they would let a guy like Regal go? Yeah, I do. I question why they let some of the other guys go. Road Dogg, I thought was one of the most entertaining guys. Are there people there I think he should have fired? Of course I do. But the point is, it's their company, it's their rules, it's their building, it's their everything.
Yeah.
So at the snap of a finger, they can change it and would. I truly believe with a guy like Regal or Scott and Brian, I really do believe it was more of I think these guys have been here long enough, and you want to change the culture. When I was there, I'd been there for a while, and man, for the last year and a half, I knew they were wanting to change the culture, because I was getting to the point where, either way, I'm just saying it's the culture that Vince wants to build. It's his way. And if they were feeling that maybe the guys were too close to talent and would help talent, my deal is this: when FCW, I don't play gotcha. If you have an issue, or you're going to be late, or whatever else is going on in your life, if you come and let me know, we'll work it out. I don't play gotcha. It's when you're lying to me or you don't come to me is when I have to say, dude, I can't work like this. You've got to work with me.
Yeah.
And I don't know that the office really wants it that way. I don't care. I've got to the point where I don't care. I'm cool with it, and I understand that. But I know William Regal was a great coach. He's a great fucking, pardon my language, great worker. Yeah, great worker. And sometimes they like that, sometimes they don't. Road Dogg can get very comfortable with people too. Yeah. Shawn Michaels, I believe, is untouchable, but nobody's untouchable at the same time. So, I think that, at the same time, it's business. At the same time, I'm sure it doesn't really please Vince, and he just has to make those hard decisions. Yeah. It's a tough gig to be in, but that's what he does, and he gets paid the big bucks and owns a company because he makes those hard decisions.
Yeah. And I've heard interviews with people who have been released, over the last year there. Interviews come out here and there. One specifically, I think, was Nia Jax. And he said that you could feel the energy backstage shifting and things were different. And she wasn't happy to be there that last year that she was there. And it's a pattern that I see, or I'm hearing from other people as well, that with the change of guard and change of, culture, comes a different mentality backstage. And I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing or a bad thing, or
it's the entertainment business. And if you're not changing, you're just standing still.
Yeah.
And they're going to change. They're going to make things different. It's not going to be, at least in the production, let me say this, is the production and new talent. You need new talent is blood. I mean, you need to keep switching talent and interjecting new blood in there. But I understand when those changes are taking place, there is an energy back there and there is an energy around you. And again, going back to FCW, we felt it. I knew it because I'd been involved in it before and I knew what was going on. And when I asked point blank, I knew what to expect and I got it right back. And I said, "Now, okay, it's okay. Well, I'm not going to walk away. You're going to have to fire me now because I'm not quitting on. Yeah, man, I'm going to force you to come in and say, hey, we're going a new direction," is usually the way they say it. We're going a new direction. And and I just said, "I get it. Thank you very much. It's cool. No problem. Got no trouble out of me. I follow." So
it's those transition periods between the change and everyone. It's because they don't know what's going on, and it's.
But I think if you look at any major company, if you don't have rivalries, whether it's in office or personal or professional, whatever it is, I think the idea, and I've seen it, and as I've lived over the years, I've seen different and studied some, not many, but CEOs on how they have to do things, and sometimes just mixing it up, hitting the blender, and kind of throwing everything into chaos and mixing it all together, and then just to come back and strain out everything except the pulp. They shake things up and get people going back on their toes again, going, "Oh my gosh, what's going on?" So I don't know if that's the case or not, but it's an instinct thing and it is a feeling thing, because when you see the changes going on, you start thinking, "Oh man, what else is coming down?" And that's what I said too. I called up and said, "Hey, I read this on the internet and you haven't said anything to us about it. What's going on?" "Oh, they don't know what they're talking about. I don't know how that got started." Well, yeah, of course you know how that got started because how about that?
Yeah. Well, I read something yesterday that on the internet, of course, that Chavo Guerrero found out that he was recently let go by AEW from reading something online.
Yeah.
Without being told.
Yeah, that kind of blows you away. But at the same time, once the shock goes away, you kind of go, "I got it. I understand." Yeah.
Yeah. So these last couple of questions, they're kind of all over the place because I would just love to hear your opinion, on these topics. Undertaker finally being announced, 2022 Hall of Fame. Long overdue, obviously. What are your thoughts on that, finally happening?
Well, I think he wanted to wait. Taker probably wanted to wait until he actually retired and actually stepped away from the ring. I think it's great, as everybody does. I mean, yeah, what are you going to say? He doesn't deserve it? Of course he deserves it. And he's earned his right in the business. He's done. He's sacrificed. He's done everything that you can do for a Hall of Fame career, no doubt, and then some. So, yeah, long overdue, but I think he wanted to make sure, he wasn't coming back and doing more matches and things like that. So he's earned it, no doubt.
And speaking of the Hall of Fame, for a second, if you can, take yourself out of who you are and look at the contributions that you've put into the business, your time and your effort, and really devoting your whole life. Do you think that there is a spot or some time in the future that Dr. Tom Prichard goes into the Hall of Fame?
Well, let me ask you this. Don't you think Jim Cornette should go in first? And I say that because they call Cornette to induct the Rock and Roll Express.
Yeah.
No matter what your personal views are and professional views as well. No, professional views, certainly. Jim Cornette, and of course the Midnight Express, if you're going to put the rock and roll in there would be no there would be rock and roll, but you kind of put those two together and they're side by side. So, before I even think or even indulge myself in believing, because the Hall of Fame is purely subjective. Not purely. No, it's not. Let me take that back. I apologize. It's not purely subjective. At times it can be, but it's like anything else. Who's voting on this? There's no votes. Yeah. You know what I mean? So, and before no, I'm not that well liked. and Jim Cornette is way more deserving than a lot of people who have already gone in. That's my opinion now.
Yeah.
And I do believe if you look at the history of the business, especially when it comes to changing the perception of the business, you had 5 guys leave Memphis, Tennessee, traditionally a smaller man's territory, go to Louisiana, traditionally a bigger man territory, and pop that place during that time frame when business and things were slowly turning over to what it became. I think the Midnight Express, all 4 members, Stan, Dennis, Bobby, and Jim, should be in the Hall of Fame before I even consider getting a new suit.
Of course. And you obviously have your podcast that you've been doing for quite some time now, and really, you could say that kind of started back in the day with Bite This, that WWE had, their that talk show, really a treasure way before its time. Could you tell people listening and watching a little bit about your podcast and what they can expect, when they listen?
Well, I'm not really sure what they can expect when they listen, to be honest with you, because like John Paz, we do it on a Sunday night. We won't do it. We won't be doing it this Sunday or next Sunday because I'm gone too. But we'll do it on a Wednesday, like we're doing it tonight on Wednesday night. And John will come up with something and we'll talk about it. But I just it's a lot of work to do a podcast, as I'm sure you're aware. I don't want to put that much time in. I don't have the time to put research in and all that stuff. So it's really just, it's a talk back and forth, and the same thing like you asked me, and I'll use some analogies and I'll say something. And sometimes he's learned to understand that just let it roll and be baffled, or let it roll and think about it, or let it roll and just let it roll.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we talk about different topics, and he's got to where we'll talk about recent and current and past and just ramble on sometimes, man. So it's a Sunday night, and we usually take about an hour to do it, sometimes less. But quite honestly, man, it's just everybody has a podcast. It's saturated.
Yeah.
And I admire Bruce because he's still doing the podcast with all his work and his schedule the way it is. I wasn't saying it is, but he and Conrad have a good deal. And I think maybe 6 people listen to mine. So I'm okay with that. Yeah.
Yeah. It gives you,
but it could be fun sometimes, because sometimes on a Sunday night, I'll be in a mood. And when I get to that point, I'm not sure anybody really wants to stop me.
No, and it's fun. At the end of the day, it's fun. Wrestling is supposed to be fun. So
Yeah.
it all ties together. The last big topic, it's probably one of the biggest topics that's still being talked about right now. Cody Rhodes leaves AEW, and there's reports and whatnot, rumors that he could be on his way back to WWE. What are your thoughts on him leaving and him possibly coming back?
Everybody does. Most times, everybody leaves and comes back. But nobody knows for sure. A lot of times when you throw a red herring out there and everybody's biting, that's the greatest thing in the world. I don't know if that's the case or not, but if he's going back to WWE, he's coming back in a different position.
Yeah.
With different gravitas, if you will. Again, that word comes up because he has been a vice president of the other company. So he has been in a top position in the other company. I don't know if they'll mention AEW on WWE, but that's what I'm saying, the other company.
Yeah.
So, and people on the internet, it'll cause a buzz, it'll cause a stir if that is the case.
Yeah.
Whether it's a ruse to get people to think he's going back to WWE or not, at least it's got people talking. Yeah. And I think that's a good thing. That's a great thing. Cody and his wife as well, they have confidence. They believe in themselves. And one thing you must have in this business is confidence. I got to know the American Dream pretty good when we were in FCW. And he came to a seminar we did in Charlotte one time, and he talked to the guys and said, people always said I had an ego. Well, you have to have an ego in this business. You have to have that performer's ego. You got to believe you're the star. Dusty Rhodes never had a body. Dusty Rhodes was just a big, fat, splotch on his belly willy from Texas. He was one of the biggest attractions in the business, up there with Andre the Giant. Dream wouldn't just work a territory. He would go from territory to territory, work Madison Square Garden. If you watch the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes versus superstar Billy Graham, their 3-match trilogy in the Garden, you'll see the showmanship. You'll feel the passion. You'll see why this guy was a superstar. It wasn't because he could grab a side headlock. I've never heard one person leave the arena and say, what an armbar John Cena put on tonight. Not once. He knows how to do it. He has his foundation, but now he's risen past. He'll do it. He'll put a hold on. He knows how to do those things, but he doesn't need to, because you're coming to see John Cena. You're coming to see the American Dream. You want to see the flash, the glitz, the glamour, the entertainment, the showbiz, the shaking the ass and the pointing and all this stuff. So, Cody Rhodes has a bit of the dream in him. And like him or not, it's about him. Yeah. It's about making money for him and his family. To hell with everybody else. And that may sound just incredibly cold and crass, and it is, but it ain't about anybody else but him. Yeah. So you got to do that. You know why they say it's lonely at the top? Because you're stepping on everybody going up, and then you can't trust anybody because they want your spot. And that's, I think it's a great thing for Cody if that's the case. Yeah. And if not, well, hell, then you can come back to AEW and say, "Gotcha, suckers." I don't know.
And you draw big money there, yeah. Either way,
yeah.
You got to do it the best.
Either way, yeah, either way.
And I like to end my chats with the same question, and that is, when you officially step away fully from wrestling, when you're done, with your teaching and your school and whatnot. What do you want your legacy to be? What do you want to be remembered for?
Look, I don't know that I have helped anybody per se in my head, because I always say, what if I would have done this? What if I would have said this? What did I do? Because sometimes I'm like everybody else. I'm human. I go off and I say things that I can't take back. So, but if anybody just got one thing coming through the school, whether it's FCW or JPWA, that's all, man, that you learn something, even if it's a minor thing, that whoever came through, the legacy was, well, yeah, he was a flake. Yeah, he was a crazy nut. Yeah, I get it. And he was insane. But at the same time, at the end of the day, what I was telling you had a point to it. And you finally got that point. It finally registered in your head. If that's all that happens, very cool. I can show you what I think is the way to do it. It's just an opinion. You have your way. I have my way. The right way and the only way. There's nothing etched in stone. That does not exist.
And I know
so that I help somebody, Joey. That's all.
And for everybody listening and watching right now, I know that you said you're not a social media guy, but where could they find more of Dr. Tom Prichard? Where could they learn about the school, and where could they go follow you?
Well, actually, hold on 1 second. They could go to jpwrestlingacademy.com, and it has all kind of cool stuff on the front page, and you can find out about our school, how much it costs, how many days, where it's at, all that good stuff. Also, I happen to have a curriculum that is also available on the front page of the jpwrestlingacademy.com website. I am on Twitter. I'll do tweet occasionally and just don't do it a whole lot because, again, I don't want the feedback. I don't want people to tell me how wrong I am because I thought the Undertaker was right. I don't care what you think about me being right or wrong. I have my opinion, and I've got to the point in my life where it's okay to have your opinion. Everybody should have whatever they believe, and you do your thing. Leave me alone. I'll do my thing. So I am on Twitter at Dr. Tom Prichard. I'm on Facebook. I think it's just Tom Prichard on there. And again, our JPWA page, and we have an email, jpwrestlingacademy@gmail.com. So, and I think if you look around, I'm trying to think what other social media platforms we have, but JPWA has been around now. We started in 2019. This is our 4th year, and I hope to keep going strong. And I hope I don't know how long it's going to be. Ricky Morton is 65 years old, and he's still wrestling because he loves it. He's a freak of nature, man. He can go out and do these things. I respect him very, very much. But I don't want to wrestle. I want to at least teach, and I want to try and help the next guys coming up. And I do it my way. He does it his way.
Of course. Dr. Tom, it's been an honor and a pleasure, having this time with you and chatting. My love and passion for pro wrestling came really in the early 2000s, in 2001, 2002, a time where you were really, you were deep in training some of the greats that we have, today. And I really do mean what I said earlier, that, without your contributions, really wrestling would not be able to get to where it is, now. And I want to thank you for, everything you've done and continue to do. And, I'd love eventually to do this again.
Sounds great. I appreciate it. And thanks for having me on.
Thank you. Wait. Before you go, I have one question to ask. Are you a pro wrestling fan? Well, if you're watching this video, in most cases you are. And with WrestleMania 38 right around the corner, there's no better way to support your favorite WWE superstar than to buy their merch and rep their style, which now you can do exclusively through the link provided below at the Angle Podcast official Amazon store, where you can find all products officially from the WWE shop itself. That includes t-shirts, hoodies, hats, title belts, action figures, Funko Pops, and even the new WWE 2K22 video game, available on all platforms. Now, if you're like me, I like to collect my WWE Funko Pops. I like to set them up for their matches, and with WrestleMania coming up, you can collect or pre-order the new Brock Lesnar Funko Pop, set it up with the limited edition Roman Reigns Funko Pop. You can get a Charlotte Flair Funko Pop and set it up side by side with the Rowdy one, Rowdy Ronda Rousey, or even the new pre-order Bianca Belair Funko Pop and Becky Lynch Funko Pop. All exclusive items at the Amazon store of the Angle Podcast, straight from WWE shop itself. Now, here is your new contest, your new giveaway. If you do make a purchase through the link provided below at the Angle Podcast official Amazon store, proof of purchase is needed in either a DM for Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Send me a proof of purchase to be entered into an exclusive contest to win your choice of a limited edition Universal Champion Roman Reigns Funko Pop or a limited edition Becky Lynch Becky 2 Belts Funko Pop. The choice is yours. Use the link provided below and get ready to enjoy the most stupendous WrestleMania in history. And before you go, please like, subscribe, and check out more wrestling content right here on the Angle Podcast.